Thumbs up. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. I just want to welcome everybody to our first leadership event. So thank you for joining. It's great to see everybody, as Brian said, a lot of diversity here. Saw some of the other Indians in the crowd. Makes me excited. Wanted to start this off, one, just kind of highlighting again what the AZN is. We're the Asian Employee Network of TEKsystems. It's in response to a growing population of self-identifying Asians that are joining our ranks. And, you know, we want to just establish a community where Asians like us and sub-Asian traditions and cultures can kind of come together and share just the things that are unique to us and our perspective and how that helps us kind of do our jobs within TEKsystems. So that's what AZN is, and we're super excited for this to be the first event, and hopefully a lot more to come and more participation across the board. And then the other thing that I wanted to touch on quickly, as I know we've already passed August, but August 15th was India Independence Day. It's actually one of the 3 national holidays in India. And so I wanted to take a minute and just kind of recognize Indian independence. You know, India got its independence from the British rule in August 15th of 1947. And it was really, you know, a momentous occasion for Indians and the country as a whole, being able to become a free country again. So wanted to take a second to recognize that. And I know a couple of our panelists are also from India and of the Indian descent. So I thought that was always a good segue. So I will let Justine take it from here.
Awesome, thanks Raj. So hi everyone, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Justine Bannigan. I'm an account manager that recently relocated back to Las Vegas after selling in San Francisco for the last 3 years. I'm a first generation full-bred Filipina, so live it, eat it, breathe it, anything from the Philippines, and speak it. I get the honor and pleasure of moderating the webinar for 3 remarkable clients of mine. I'm super excited that they're on this webinar for us. For our first Asian Employee Network customer panel, like Raj mentioned, we wanted to have clients in senior leadership roles we've partnered with touch on some of the most common situations people who identify as Asian may encounter throughout their careers. So I want to thank our panelists again, as I know some of the experiences they're going to be sharing may not be the easiest, but do know our network really appreciates your vulnerability and the impact you're going to make on our lives. So we'll start off with each panelist giving us a quick intro of their role and heritage, and then how they felt when they were asked to be a panelist for Asians in tech leadership. We'll start with Sandra, if you want to kick it off.
Hi, this is Sandra Giron. I'm Filipino American, and I work for a company called College Loan Corporation. Been there for about 13 years. Actually born and raised in San Diego and moved over to Las Vegas along with the company about, I think 11 years ago. So I'm currently the VP of Software Development for the company. Started out as a Salesforce.com administrator and trainer, and just worked in various positions and operations in IT, and ended up being a VP about 2 years ago, or 3 years ago. So when Justine asked me to be part of this panel, honestly, I was like, really, why me, you know? Didn't really think I had a story to share or anything interesting to tell, you know, and she just asked me, like, or she was just telling me, like, are you kidding me? You're like one of the very few Asian women in Las Vegas in an IT leadership role. Obviously was not aware of that. So I'm very honored, and yeah, just very excited. And this is really awesome, seeing all the different faces and cultures, and just the diversity is amazing. So like, I'm just like, wow, I'm really honored right now, just even seeing this right now. So thank you, Justine.
Of course. Ms. Sravani, do you want to go ahead?
Sure. I think I would start off saying I'm really overwhelmed to see so many faces and to have you all join, and me being part of this experience just overall. makes me nervous. I want to choose every word carefully. I don't know how everybody is feeling. I know my heart is beating really, really fast. Yeah, I'm Sravani Atluri. I'm actually born and brought up in India. I moved to New York City around 11, 12 years now. It was, I would say, again, overwhelming experience. It was a culture shock. I was exposed to quite a bit in India where I've worked, but coming to a different country and experiencing new culture was quite something. I started off when I moved to New York in a lot of odd jobs, but I was finally able to get my foot in the door in marketing, and I was able to build myself up from there on. I've worked more in a blended position of project management and marketing roles quite a bit, worked with technology companies and clients on the agency side. And I moved to Vegas around 6 years ago, just because my husband loves Vegas. So we decided to kind of move to the heat, not the hot area, and continued my role in marketing. And I was lucky enough to get this position with advisors around 2 years ago. And I started off as director of marketing, and now I'm the vice president of marketing. And it's been a very I would say it's been a learning curve. It's been amazing to be here and be able to share my story. I always had, I had a very blended experience. I'm not from here. I came from a different country. So I was very excited when I was asked to speak to it, because I feel like there were, in some parts of my career, I had people who mentored me. Either it's my boss or my peers, or helps me to navigate myself through different situations and scenarios. So if I can help someone, I'm just grateful for that. So I'm honored to be here, and thank you for having me.
Thank you again. And Akash, last but not least.
All right. Hey, great to see everyone. Thank you again for hosting this panel. It's wonderful to see so many great folks here on the call, and I'm hoping that everyone gets something useful out of the discussions today. So my name is Akash. I'm an Indian American. I grew up actually born and raised in Minnesota, and came out here to the Bay Area for college and haven't really left. So I've been Bay Area native for many years now. And currently my role is CTO of Afterpay. Afterpay is a leading buy now, pay later service where you can buy something today and pay over 4 equal installments, no interest, no credit. So this is a company that started in Australia and came over to the US about 2.5, 3 years ago. And I joined at the time when we started the US business. Have been really great partners with TEKsystems. Justine worked with me almost from day one to help staff a lot of the initial team. So definitely very grateful for her help and support on getting us off the ground and to where we are today. Prior to Afterpay, I spent about 3 years at Uber, working on mobile and driver-facing products as a director of engineering. Prior to that, I was at Twitter for about 4 or 5 years, leading a lot of the user growth initiatives, as they were kind of ramping up in the early 2000s. It's interesting to see how Twitter is now being viewed in the world. It's crazy to see the thing we created and what kind of impact it's having. And then prior to that, I actually was co-founder and CTO of a social networking startup that actually got to some real scale in actually many markets internationally, including Thailand, Peru, Romania, sort of the Facebook, if you will, of those markets. That's my background. I think when Justine asked me about joining this panel, I was definitely humbled and honored. I think I've been fortunate to have some fantastic mentors and people that I've learned from over the years. So to the extent that anything I can convey that helps people here achieve goals and kind of take on more things, I'm really excited to sort of hopefully share some of those today.
Awesome. You guys are already getting a ton of praise in the chat box, so I'm really excited because we haven't even gotten to the questions yet. So we do have questions lined up for our panelists, but if the team has any comments, kudos, or further questions, please feel free to share it in the chat box, and then Teresa's going to be gathering them so that we can hopefully have time to ask them towards the end of the webinar. We'll jump right into our first question, and it's going to be geared towards Sandra. Sandra, how did or does your family react to you being a technology leader, and because of your family's cultural heritage, do they still feel like you should be working in other specific fields or industries more commonly associated with being successful in your cultural heritage?
Growing up in a semi-traditional Filipino family, you grow up hearing, oh, it would be great if you were a nurse, or in my dad's case, an accountant. And, you hear them bragging about, their friends' kids who, or not kids, but their friends' children who grew up to be, nurses and accountants or doctors. And, you kind of feel that pressure growing up, going into college. I still felt like, oh, should I go into healthcare or medicine or accounting? And I just, none of those fields interested me. I can't even stand the sight of blood when they're drawing blood for me, so I could never become a nurse. And, accounting, so I went into college and still really not sure. I actually got my degree in psychology, but I was working as a tech support in the university that I was going to school at. And I just kind of fell into technology, and it really interested me. And, and I would tell my parents, and it was just, it was really just, oh, okay, well, what is that? So didn't really get too much of a negative response, but I didn't get a lot of like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. They weren't bragging to their friends about me or anything. And then, as years passed, I still stayed in the IT industry and eventually got into leadership. And, you throw the buzzwords like, oh, mom and dad, I'm a director now, or now I'm a VP. And they're like, oh, okay, cool. But can you help me with my laptop or, fix my iPhone? So I think, really it's just they're proud, but even to this day, I don't think they honestly know what I truly do. It's just not typical, being a nurse or an accountant, it's such a clear path. Everybody knows what a nurse does. Everybody knows what an accountant does. But if you say, oh, I'm in IT, it's just, well, what is that? So your question is, do they still feel like I should be in a different career? Probably not. I mean, I think at this point they've accepted it, but, it's just, I still feel like I still need to educate them, not just my parents, but, just relatives and my friends, Asian friends, whose parents still think, in order to be successful, you should be in the medical field. You still hear it a lot, maybe not as much as before, but I think as long as you educate them more and they know, that it is great to be an IT leader, they'll be more accepting of that field. And, it just, I think it'll get better as time goes, but, I did grow up feeling like I should be a nurse, which didn't happen, but, but yeah.
Cool. I joked to Sandra that because this is being recorded, that she can take this as a proof point to her parents that I'm actually someone who great, thank you. I'm sure a lot of people still probably feel that pressure even working at TEKsystems. So thanks for sharing. So the second question is going to go to Sravani. Where are some of your biggest challenges you faced moving up in your career, and how did you persevere? Did you feel like some of these challenges were specifically tied to your cultural heritage? And then were they harder for you to navigate versus other colleagues or different cultural backgrounds?
I think I can speak on that forever. So I just want to say something to what Sandra said. I wish it was the case in my family. It was quite opposite. It was more about my parents wanting me to go in a technology field and become somebody in software development. In fact, I actually went to school and I did my bachelor's in information technology. But honestly, I had no interest in coding or going into some sort of IT field specifically. However, I think that overall helped me shape my career, just having an understanding of technology and dev and working in the marketing field. I think my mom is still a little disappointed that I'm not a developer or a software engineer. And I don't think she still understands what I do in marketing either, because for her, marketing has a different definition from where we grew up and what she did and what she understood. So thank you for sharing that. To answer your question, Justin, so my biggest challenge was when I moved here, how do I get myself into the door? How do I get a job? I don't have a college degree here. I don't have experience here. I have some experience in marketing back in India, but I don't think that really spoke when I was applying for a lot of jobs. And so my goal was to somehow get myself into the door, whatever position I can get, whoever I can get in touch with, however I can expand my network, speak to people, get a opportunity to begin with, so I can build myself up. So I did, and I was in New York. I mean, it was a lot of opportunities to begin with. I think I was lucky in a way, because I had a lot of options and places to go in and apply, either in-person, temp jobs, or including Craigslist. There were days where when I went to an interview, I was like, should I knock the door and go in, because this doesn't sound right? But fortunately, I didn't have any bad experience, but that's how I got myself through the door. And once I got there, I was, and I think we talked about this a little bit earlier, I was told to always put my head down, work hard, and you get what you get. You will get what you deserve. Just keep working hard. You don't have to ask for it. You will get it. And that's what I did. I was trying to learn and absorb and grow and put in the hours as much as needed, whether it's asked for or whether it wasn't asked for. I was sometimes working 15-hour days, but years passed by, and I wish I recognized this a little bit earlier, but I realized, this is not working out. I can't keep waiting for something to come my way. If I want something, I need to start talking to people. I need to talk to my boss, figure out a plan, tell her or tell him what I want. And if I'm not there yet, then let's find a way to get there, get myself there. And if I don't get it, maybe it's time to move on. And that's kind of the mindset I put myself in. And again, it took me a while, but I got there. There was even at one point in my career where I worked for a company which I think I wish I didn't for that long. And I used to be at work at 6 in the morning and leave at 9, sometimes voluntary, sometimes because I was mandated. I had a 2-year-old kid. I was working really hard because a lot of responsibility fell into my lap because of my boss leaving abruptly, and I was managing 40 people at one point. I learned a lot from it, and I think it gave me really the experience to be where I am today. However, I was sitting there doing my job, hoping that, and was being led that I was going to get somewhere in the company. 2 years into the role, working myself to the bone, I don't think I not only got what I thought I will, I think I was kind of being pushed down a little bit. And that is something that I didn't really, it was kind of a wake-up time for me. And I said, you know what, this is it. This is not something that I want to continue working with, even if it was scary for me. At that point of time, it was time for me to leave. That was when I realized, you know what, next time I'm not going to do this. I'm going to figure out a plan for myself, how I'm going to get there, and talk to my supervisor from the day one, and work hard, but also set expectations of what you're working for, and you will get there. And if you're not, like I said, it's time maybe to move on. And From a cultural perspective, I think that played quite a bit a role in how I shifted the way I thought or I worked in organizations. And that really helped me. And, for a long time in my career, I think I was the only minority woman at the table, or only woman at the table sometimes. I was made fun of my race, and it was offensive, and I didn't know how to respond except for just take a step back and say, okay, they brushed it off as a joke. I'm just not going to make a big deal because I don't want to make a stink of it, and I don't want to, lose opportunity in my career because of it. Didn't experience that a lot in New York because I think it was I was lucky enough to work for a lot of organizations which was diverse already. I think experienced more after I moved to Vegas. I hate to say that, but those are, I've used that as learning experiences and learn to speak up and talk to whoever you need to figure out a plan for yourself and make the move. And I think that will really help you grow in your career. And you know what? What's the worst that could happen? If you don't get it, you don't get it. And that's okay. We'll figure out another plan. But that's kind of my experience. And, and I hope that can help someone.
Great, thank you for sharing. The next question we have is for Akash. Akash is on the opposite end of the spectrum with his experiences. The question we have for you, Akash, is how have you leveraged your mentors and coaches as you've navigated into leadership roles, and what level of importance do you feel they play in getting promoted? Could you have achieved your level of success without them, and what's the best piece of advice or coaching you received as it pertains to landing a top executive role?
Yeah, definitely. I would say that throughout my career, I've been very lucky and fortunate to have worked with some fantastic mentors and coaches, all the way through college, but also as I, started into my working career. I think being able to see people who've, achieved and overcome great difficulties to, rise to, let's say, executive or leadership roles is very inspiring. I think, in particular, when I was at Uber, I heard a lot from Tuan, who was the CTO at the time. Recently left the company, but he had kind of a very remarkable story of being a Vietnamese refugee and coming across the U.S. with nothing, literally, except for his brother and his mom, and no money, and how he sort of worked hard, got into MIT, and kind of started his career. And so just hearing about those stories just gives you a lot of inspiration that people who do come to the U.S. Have opportunities to kind of really achieve great heights. And so, when it boils down to, I was thinking about over the course of my career, what are some of the key pieces of advice or coaching that I thought were most useful as you sort of try to take on more responsibility or get into more of an executive role at a particular company. And I think one common theme I've seen is that, the best leaders, I think, realize and understand that, they don't know all the answers, right? Even though someone may project a lot of outward confidence, I think it's important for leaders to A, understand that you don't know all the answers, and B, to show that vulnerability to your colleagues and teammates, meaning that you are going to seek out diverse sets of opinions and viewpoints when you're solving a difficult problem. And even more importantly, when a leader makes a mistake, which everyone makes mistakes, I think that's an important thing to acknowledge, that you learn from those, but also highlight those to your teams and say, hey, this is what happened. This was a mistake. We learned this X, Y, and Z. And I think that sets a really great culture, and also shows that you're a person who can learn and grow, right? Because ultimately, every single business we're in today is evolving at such a rapid pace that what you know today is not going to be that relevant in 6 months. And so you have to be able to adapt. And if you can't learn and grow from mistakes, you will just be very stagnant. And I think as you think about executive leadership, that's probably the most important thing someone needs to sort of exhibit and sort of be able to lead a company. Pandemic hits, how do you react and sort of adjust and sort of navigate that? Because there's no playbook for what we're going through this year, for sure. I mean, this is unprecedented, but there'll always be these kinds of challenges. So being able to kind of navigate those is really important. I think the other kind of important thing, and I think a lot of people struggle with this, is, how do you grow as an individual and how do you grow as a leader? And it's this idea of how do you sort of challenge yourself? I think, really growth happens when you maybe stretch yourself beyond a comfort zone, right? Or beyond what you can do really well. And I think the recipes for success there are, getting that coaching and mentorship from either people in your organization or maybe outside who can help you navigate that. And I think not being afraid to kind of step into those roles or opportunities, I think is really, really important. And I think sometimes you see people, whether it's their cultural backgrounds or people may tend to not want to take things that they don't have 100% certainty on. But I think you only grow when you take those opportunities. So it's really just saying, hey, what do I need to be as successful as I can? And nobody can predict the future, but you will learn through those experiences, and that'll actually help you kind of continue to find where you have strengths and where you need to kind of double down and maybe work on something else. So I would say I've had some mentors and coaches who've maybe challenged me to say, hey, I think you can take this. Why don't you go with it and see what happens? And I think those have always been really, really helpful. But I think if you don't have that, or that's not really part of your day to day, how do you sort of seek those out yourself and take on more and or maybe take on things that quote unquote make you uncomfortable? I think that's really ultimately what's going to be important. And even today, I'm finding lots of new things that I'm quote unquote uncomfortable with and then trying to learn. And it's always a good journey and finding people who can help you with that. So yeah, those are kind of, I think, come up some of my learnings there. And I think, if you don't have a coach or mentor that you feel is trusted, I think definitely important to look through your network and see if you can find some of those folks, because I think it's incredibly valuable as you progress through your career.
Cool, thank you. The last official question we have goes to all of the panelists. What does the Asian employee experience inside your companies look like today versus what it looked like when you joined? And then how has it evolved, and what obstacles or challenges still need to be addressed? I'll let Sandra and Sravani go first, and then maybe Akash can close it.
Sorry. I'm kind of in a unique position because when I started with College Loan, it was we had about 700 employees across the country, and we have since downsized to about 60 people here in Las Vegas. I mean, I would say it's pretty diverse. There's a few Asians in the company, and I'm pretty lucky because I do work with senior managers who are very open to, promoting or the awareness of, promoting diversity in our company. So really, I mean, I'm kind of lucky in that respect. So.
I'm trying to figure out how to answer that question, because I think when I was in New York, like I said, I was lucky enough to work more in a diverse organizations. Like I worked more on the agency side, and I started off my advertising agency experience in a multicultural company. So you can imagine there's all kinds of culture, people from all kinds of cultures were part of that company. So I was lucky enough to be part of that diverse group and experience that. But when I moved to Vegas, I didn't experience the same. It was quite opposite. I was the only Asian woman in the organization. And I think Advisors, or CLC, is the first company in the time I've been in Vegas, where we are more diverse. I think our senior management is very diverse. We have a couple of Asian, actually one Asian senior in the senior management, and also within the group, we have a couple of people in our teams across departments. So I would say, I think maybe not as a whole, because I can't speak to the whole country and I have no experience in that, but within Vegas, from what I have seen, I think it's changing, or I hope it's changing and it's evolving. I mean, you guys are the best example to see that, to see so many Asian people from Asian community to be part of this webinar and to have this dialogue, I think just stands as an example by itself, and say that we are growing, we're trying to come together as a community and just support each other and help each other. So I hope that it continues to grow, and we can be there for each other whenever someone needs help. So that's kind of my take on that.
Akash, do you want to go?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say, I think in kind of the technology-heavy companies, especially in Silicon Valley, you probably have certainly an overrepresentation from, a few Asian countries such as India and China, and probably, severe underrepresentation in other countries within the Asian diaspora, but also, other underrepresented minorities and women, of course, where you really have, it's a pretty poor showing, and I think this is really, a deeply rooted problem that many people are solving. Now, I think with us in particular, I think we've made a lot of progress in the last 6 months on addressing some of those gaps in terms of diversity and hiring. And I think it starts from leadership. You need to really have a strong goal around what you're trying to do and what you're trying to achieve. And really, when we talk to recruiters or we try to screen people who are helping bring in talent, we really look towards their track record of success in their ability to bring in underrepresented minorities and women to tech companies, and that's actually, I think, starting to yield some really great results. And we're seeing, I think, a much healthier mix of representation coming in. But I think in tech in general has a long way to go, I think, to get more balance in kind of how diversity is going.
Awesome. Well, that concludes the official questions we have, and we actually received a ton of questions that Teresa's going to go ahead and run with for the panelists. These are more impromptu, so they don't have set answers for these.
Awesome. Thank you, Sandra, Sravani, and Akash for sharing your insight. Definitely, I know it's very impactful for our team to hear. I'm going to start with the first question, actually from Alik Yu. As a culture, Asians are typically taught to work hard and to be quieter and observe. How did your leaders push yourselves past that, and being that was such a big part of your upbringing, essentially to become leaders? Like, how did you push past that?
I think for me, you're right. We do grow up, being taught to just, be quiet and observe. And I did start out that way, and I think it made me feel just more insecure about, my strengths and, like, hey, I do know as much as these people or more, but I don't want to say anything because they're probably not going to listen to me. But I think what helped me the most is just, I went to a lot of seminars and leadership seminars where you do, you're kind of forced to tell your story and talk about yourself. And it does give you a lot of confidence the more you're immersed in that type of situation. So you take that back to your workplace and, you just, speak a little louder, do tell your story. And even if you don't know everything, be transparent about that. And, like I said before, I've been lucky to be part of a company that is pretty diverse, even more so now. And the more women I saw in the meetings, the more empowered I felt and the more confidence I felt. But really, just get in there, join groups, go to seminars and just, speak up, and it'll just give you more confidence. So that's what helped me.
Yeah, I resonate a lot with what Sandra said. I was very insecure in terms of communications, in terms of my accent and language and whether I'm saying it right, whether I'm understanding it right, because I come from, English is not my native language, even though my education was all in English. It's just, there are a lot of things that I personally had to overcome to, build confidence. But in the beginning of the career, I was lucky enough to have one of my bosses who happened to be also Indian. She came from Mumbai, and she's been in United States for a very long time. And she happened to meet my boss, and she became a really good mentor for me and a good friend, and really helped me navigate through different scenarios. One of the things I remember her telling me, which I think I use that every day, it's okay if I get something wrong or if I say something that might not be accurate, but when we get feedback, don't speak next time when you're speaking. Don't let that confidence don't let that lower your confidence. Continue to speak with confidence because, that's how you learn and grow. Speak up for yourself and, especially when you know what you're saying is right or you know what you're speaking about. Just because someone said something or provided feedback about how you might have spoken or how you might have, responded to a particular situation or scenario, take that as a learning lesson and continue to grow from it. Don't let that push you back down. That helped quite a bit. And later on, I had a couple of mentors in some parts of my career where they were women who helped me quite a bit, again, in just trying to figure out my way through the corporate situations and just navigating myself and figuring out my way. So I think that helped quite a bit on how I was able to build my confidence. And a few years ago, I don't think I would have been be able to speak at a webinar like this, irrespective of how good I might have been at my job. Speaking in front of people is not my forte. I definitely would say that. But I think that helps quite a bit. Even in my day-to-day work today, Sandra, we have quite a good woman leadership here, and just having to speak with them or see them talk in meetings or conversations or different, scenarios, I think helps me figure out my way and how I can do better or how I can communicate better.
Wonderful. Akash, is there something you'd like to add as well?
Yeah, I don't think I have much more to add, so maybe we can go to the next questions. I know we're running low on time.
All right, perfect. No, and I appreciate Sandra and Sravani for sharing. I know, as you mentioned, with confidence and that reinforcement is definitely something that is great to hear and to understand. Last question that we have, as we mentioned with time, as leaders in tech and buyers of services, what, if any, role does diversity play in your evaluation or decision making?
Yeah, I mean, I could just start off the bat. I think it's a very important determinant. I think the values and approach that a vendor, has or adopts is actually quite important when we're evaluating a service provider or a company that we want to partner with. So certainly, I think that's become a bit more formalized over the last year or two as we've, we work with a lot of different vendors, as I'm sure everyone here does, and so just making sure that that company, has the same values, that we really believe strongly in, and certainly diversity and their inclusion practices, and also just how they sort of view themselves in the world in terms of what they're providing is quite important. And we'd be the first to drop a vendor if they sort of violated any of those principles. It's quite important for us.
I can just add to that a little bit. For me, when I either work through a company, a recruitment company, or hiring directly for the team, I tend to give importance to the actual experience that I'm looking at the resume, not the name, not the person, not who he is or she is. And I don't know if because of that, I was able to, or we have a diverse team, or was able to, at least in advisors when I came in, I was lucky enough to actually hire a couple of people, and we had a little bit of turnaround, had the team recruited. So I would like to look at my team, and I was like, I didn't go after specific people, when looking at their experience, either it's a male or female or what community or, race they belong to. I just strictly went with experience. And when they came into the table, of course, they were evaluated across the board, emotional intelligence to their skill set and everything. And that's how, I was able to bring different team members. And at the end of the day, I think it worked out really well. We have a very diverse group, and they're very hardworking and talented. So one of the things I think we should always look at, it's important to have diversity, but at the same time, it should be a balance between just, how you recruit and who we recruit, and what that can bring to the organization.
Perfect. No, we appreciate you both sharing. Sandra, was there something you wanted to add to that? I just saw your mic.
No, my feedback would be very similar to what Sravani was saying. So yeah.
Perfect. No, thank you both for sharing your perspective when it comes to diversity and inclusion within the industry as well. Brian, I know I am kicking it off to you to close this out, correct?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Teresa. Wow, what an exciting 45 minutes for me personally. I hope you guys all felt similar. I feel honored to say this is an exciting time to be an Asian in tech systems. And I really want that to sink in for you all. Like, it is an exciting time to be an Asian in tech systems. And I can honestly say 5 years ago, I might not have been able to say that with the same level of passion and commitment that I can say that with today. So I want to say thank you all for joining. I don't know many of you, and for those of you that don't, I'm Brian Tagami. I've been with TEKsystems for over 16 years. I've lived in many different cities for tech and been fortunate to have many different opportunities inside our organization. I am the executive sponsor for AZN Employee Network. And it's just so wonderful to see so many folks joining today. I want to say, obviously, a thank you to Justine for organizing and pulling this event together, along with Raj and Teresa. I want to thank the panelists, Akash, Sandra, Sravani. That was awesome. And you guys don't understand the pebble with which you guys dropped here today and the ripples it can have will be far-reaching. So thank you very much for your time today. I also want to thank our executive leaders from TEKsystems who have joined us on the call today. Kristen, Mel, Meg, Dan. It's your guys' interest in prioritizing these kind of events to create awareness and strengthen our messaging across the organization, which is going to be super powerful as we go on our journey to evolve the Asian employee experience here at TEKsystems. So thank you very much. And I want to thank our leadership team in the AZN Asian Community Network. Justine, Toby, Raj, Vanessa, Jimmy, Sean, Paul. We've got a talented group of folks of all different tenures and roles inside TEKsystems volunteering time to improve the overall experience of Asians inside of TEKsystems for the first time. And with partnership and support from Franklin Reed, we are just at the beginning of launching our journey, and to Akash's point, formalizing some strong goals around what the mission is for our charter. And I'd say that at the highest level, it is to make TEKsystems a great place for Asians to thrive at all levels in their roles and all positions in our organization, be those producing roles, leadership roles, you name it. So that's our overall goal. So I'd cap this off by saying, please take a look at our Teams page. We've got a great presentation in there about our charter and our goals and our focus areas. And please chat and reach out to us. We are going to be hosting those events over the next sort of one a quarter is what we're going to try and achieve. We'd love to hear from you guys. This is about improving your experience here at TEKsystems. So we want your feedback, and we take it seriously, and we're working to try and get you guys the best panelists and best content to really improve your employee experience. So with that, I'll say thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your week. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.